Let's just jump right in. Because what if I told you that everything you think you know about interpreting your dreams is wrong? Seriously, what if all the symbolism, the hidden meanings, the psychological codes we search for are all just a shadow of something way more physical, something happening right inside your brain?
Come on, you know you've done it. We've all been there. You have one of those super vivid dreams. Maybe you're falling or flying, or you're lost in some weird house, and the first thing you do when you wake up is grab your phone to Google what it means. We've been taught for a century that dreams are this secret language from our subconscious.
But that entire idea is now being challenged by a radical new model. So on one side, you have the traditional view. Dreams are a symbolic language that we have to interpret. And on the other, you have this new scientific idea that dreams are just the visual shadows cast by the physical gears and levers of our brain at work. Now, to really get why this new idea is such a revolution, we first have to understand the old guard. You know, the way we've been taught to think about the so-called language of our dreams. So for decades, you had thinkers from Freud all the way to modern analysts arguing that dreams speak to us through images and metaphors. The idea is pretty simple. A house in your dream represents yourself, water represents emotion, you get the picture. And in this world, you, the dreamer, are the ultimate expert because all those symbols are supposedly tied to your personal life and your feelings. And look, this approach has been huge. It's shaped how we've thought about dreams for 100 years. But the whole thing is built on one massive assumption, that our dreams are actively trying to tell us something. But what if they aren't? And that is the question that changes absolutely everything. It reframes the entire conversation. It suggests that dreams aren't some psychological code we have to crack, but more like a biological light show, a direct window into the actual physical stuff happening in your brain. So let me introduce you to the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short. This theory says that dream images aren't intentional symbols at all. Nope, they're just the visible surface, the pattern that emerges from deeper physical forces, like electrochemical waves zipping through your neural networks. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. Traditional theory always asks, why? What's the psychological purpose of seeing a tree? BKM asks, how? What physical process in the brain created that tree-shaped pattern? So the images aren't symbols, they're shadows. And the meaning? It's not the point. It's just a side effect of the brain's machinery doing its thing. Okay, so if dreams aren't made of symbols, what are they made of? Well, according to the BKM, it all boils down to the pure physics of how an image gets made in the first place. It's actually a pretty simple three-step process. First, you have these electrochemical strain waves moving through your brain's networks. As they travel, they light up different clusters of memories. And then finally, your brain, which is just trying to make sense of this raw pattern of activity, grabs the nearest visual from your memory that fits the shape of that pattern. And boom, you have a dream image. I love this analogy because it makes everything click. The image you see in your dream, the falling, the flying, the forest, it isn't some hand-picked message from your subconscious. It's just the shape that gets made when different waves of brain activity bump into each other. It's physics, not poetry. So the main takeaway here is this. What we've been calling symbols are actually just direct readouts of physical patterns in the brain. We're not decoding a secret message. We're just watching the machine run. All right, so let's see how this all cashes out in the real world. This is the fun part. How does this new model totally reinterpret the classic dream symbols we all think we know? This is just fascinating. So you dream of water. That's not a symbol for your emotions. It's the direct visual of what low-frequency, high-amplitude emotional waves look like in your brain. A house isn't a metaphor for you. It's a literal map of how your memories are laid out spatially. And a forest? Well, that's just what dense, overlapping clusters of memories look like when your brain tries to draw a picture of them. And the same thing goes for actions. That classic, terrifying dream of falling, it's not a metaphor for losing control of your life. It's your brain rendering a physical event, a literal collapse of its own neural support structures. Flying is just what it feels like when high-frequency waves are propagating freely. And that horrible feeling of sleep paralysis? It's the sensation of your brain's low-frequency fields literally locking into place. So you see the fundamental shift, right? We're moving from being amateur psychologists trying to guess at symbols to becoming something more like pattern analysts, just observing the raw physics of our own minds. But the power of this model doesn't just stop with your personal dreams every night. No, it scales up, and it offers a totally new way to understand the very stories that have shaped human culture. It's a wild thought, but the same physical patterns that are shaping your dreams might also be the blueprint for our most ancient and powerful myths. Take two of our biggest foundational myths, Pandora's box and Adam and Eve. Traditionally, we see them as stories about, curiosity or sin. But if you look at them through the BKM lens, they're both showing the exact same physical pattern. A stable, contained system has its boundary broken, and that rupture releases this wave of complexity and strain, creating the messy, difficult, beautiful thing we call the human condition. And that really brings us right back to the core idea of this whole new science. We have spent all this time looking for hidden messages when the dream itself, its shape, its movement, its feeling, was the message all along. We don't need to decode symbols, we just need to analyze the dynamic patterns that are right there in front of us. So this leaves us with a really profound final thought to chew on. If our dreams are a direct, unfiltered window into the physics of our consciousness, what else is? Our myths? Our art? Those sudden flashes of insight we get? Could they all be just the surface of a much deeper, physical reality? What else are we misinterpreting as a symbol when it's actually just a shadow of the machine at work?